Go ahead, quick, get in the car.
Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn. Today's deck is the one that I'm currently using to rank up on the standard ladder because it's absolutely insanely fast, insanely efficient, and I thought it was kind of a meme at first, but the more I played it, the more I realized it's absolutely real. And this deck's called Mr. Fusion. It's a 𝑀𝑎𝑟𝑑𝑢 burn deck. That's right, 3-color burn, because we're using the absolute best damage output potential burn spells in the entire game. We're using a creature base as well to supplement it, but every single creature has a way to deal damage to the opponent. Even if it doesn't hit for combat damage, even if our opponent kills our creatures, we're still doing damage no matter what. So every card we play is just constantly taking down our opponent's life total, and it just has this inevitability that no matter what, we're gonna win if we can just play everything out, and it's nuts. Before we break down the deck and then get into the gameplay, please like the video. It helps me get it out to more people. It helps the channel grow. I would appreciate it so much. Also subscribe if you're new, because I have a ton of crazy content on the way. More ridiculous deck techs that I just haven't had the time to get around to yet, but they are coming this week for sure. Probably one every day. And there's some crazy spoiler content on the channel, so make sure you check out that stuff. We just got our first spoilers for Tarkir Dragonstorm, for the new Final Fantasy set, and I went over all of it in detail, so check all of that stuff out, and catch me live Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn, because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. This is Mr. Fusion. I might be out of my mind, but we absolutely went there and we made it work, and it's kind of insane. This is 𝑀𝑎𝑟𝑑𝑢 Burn, a 3-color burn deck, which seems like it's way too ambitious, but once you actually play it, it's just kind of insane, and it works super well and super efficiently. We do have a number of creatures in here, but the key with this deck is we're not relying on getting through for combat damage with our creatures like a lot of the other mono red decks. We have ways for all of our creatures to deal damage even if they don't connect in combat, and a lot of our creatures deal damage regardless of if our opponent uses removal on them. So no matter what, they can't blow us out the same way they can mono red, where, you know, you try to buff up your dudes and in response they use instant speed removal and then all that value is gone. Just every single card we play is automatically guaranteed a certain amount of damage, almost. There are a few stipulations, but for the most part, no matter what, we're dealing damage with every single card we play, and we just have to get there. We have to get to that point where we've played enough cards that we absolutely just run our opponent out of life and just win the game, no matter what they do. So starting at the bottom of the curve, we've got 4 copies of Boltwave, just 3 damage automatically. 4 copies of Burst Lightning, it's just a better shock, 2 damage early or 4 damage late if we kick it. We can also use this as removal if we're up against a mono red deck to blow them out if they're trying to buff their dudes, which is awesome. We've got 4 copies of Hired Claw. This is our only creature in the deck that has to actually attack in order to do damage, but it's a 1-drop, so we just play it on 1. As long as it survives the turn cycle, it swings in, does an automatic damage, and if they don't have any blockers, it's going to get through for even more damage, which is always nice. We've also got 4 copies of Sawblade Scamp, which I think is really overlooked in a deck like this. It can come down on turn 1, swing in with haste, get in for 1 damage regardless of whether it has oil counters, but then every single burn spell we play throughout the game puts an oil counter on it, and if we get to that point in the game where we can't swing through for damage anymore, every turn we can just tick this to do 1 damage, and it adds up over time, especially when every single card in the deck is just doing direct damage to our opponent's face. Moving on to the 2-drop slots, we've got 4 Viashino Pyromancer, 2/1 for 2, and when it enters, it deals 2 damage to the player regardless. So even if they have removal and they're holding up removal and they kill this thing as soon as we drop it, we still got our 2 damage and we got rid of their removal spell, which is very important. We're also running 4 copies of Grab the Prize, which is our card draw in the deck, and this is what gasses us up just enough to get there and pull out the win before our opponent can really just kind of come back and recover their board state and recover their life total. Being able to draw 2 cards while also dealing 2 damage if we discard a non-land to this is bananas. Basically, you could like discard your Burst Lightning, And it's almost like you just paid 1 mana to play your Burst Lightning, and then also paid 1 mana to just draw 2 cards. This turns into basically pay 1 mana, draw 2 cards, which is insane if you discard the Burst Lightning. But then it gets even better, because in certain situations, if it's later in the game and you have a creature that's well past the point in the game where it can really contribute any meaningful damage, you can just discard the creature, get that 2 damage in, and draw 2 more cards. But also, if you're flooding a bit, you could always just discard a land, and even though you're not going to get the extra 2 damage off this when you do that, you will still be able to dig for 2 relevant cards, get rid of a dead card in your hand, and that's also a really good way to use it. So grab the prize, super versatile, keep piling on the damage, keep drawing into gas, it's awesome. We only have 3 3-drops in the entire deck, and that's 3 copies of Screaming Nemesis, a 3/3 with haste. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to whatever we want, and then if we deal damage to the player that way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game. So this is a nice way of, even if they have damage-based removal or blockers lined up or whatever, they can't really stop the Screaming Nemesis. So even though it doesn't definitely do damage as soon as it enters, before they can remove it, it has a much better chance than most other creatures. They can't stop the damage with blocking, they can't stop the damage with damage-based removal on their side, and a lot of times we could just get in with enough damage that they can't stop to just help us win the game. It's also nice to hold back as a blocker, and that's another thing I want to point out about this deck. All of these creatures, depending on the deck that we're up against, can serve a different purpose. If we're in a position where we can just be aggressive and swing in and they don't have blockers, maybe we're up against control, we just have more damage output potential in addition to all of our crazy burn. But at the same time, if we're up against another creature deck and we just need to buy ourselves a turn or two to actually play out all of the burn cards in our hand before our opponent kills us, having things like Screaming Nemesis or any of these creatures down to chump block with is awesome. Not only do we stop them from killing us, the Screaming Nemesis gets to, shoot that damage wherever it wants. The Pyromancer can chump block, keep us alive an extra turn to win the game, while also putting out that 2 damage. The Sawblade Scamp could be held up as a blocker, and then after chump blocks, tap it to still ping for a damage. So there's a lot of potential to just put out damage, and then just roadblock our opponent so that they can't finish us off before we have the time we need to just cast all of the burn in our hand. But a lot of the best burn in our hand comes from the other colors in this deck, so let's talk about why we're running black and white. First of all, we're running black for 4 copies of Hopeless Nightmare. I did make a Boros version of this deck originally, but I just decided to try to get greedy and say, instead of running Shock, why don't I play Hopeless Nightmare? If we're going to the head, it's the same thing except they discard a card as well. And so I was like, 3 colors probably too ambitious. It's probably going to be too cute and not work, but we're going to try it. And it absolutely works. It never feels too cute. We always get there, and being able to get a card out of their hand in the process is absolutely backbreaking against certain matchups. And then we've also got 4 copies of the new Gastal Thrillseeker. Originally, I had my doubts about this card, but the more I played it, the more relevant I realized it was. It's a 2-mana 2/3 Lizard Berserker with Start Your Engines. When it enters, it deals 1 damage to target opponent and you gain 1 life. At first, I thought just 1 damage was a little too negligible and didn't matter enough, and maybe this card wouldn't make the cut. But that 1 damage is still 1 automatic damage, even if they kill the Gastal Thrillseeker. And if you take into account the fact that you start your engines and then immediately drain them for 1, you're immediately going up to speed 2. And even though this is the only card in the deck that cares about speed, getting to max speed to turn on that Death Touch can sometimes be super, super important, especially if we are up against those decks where we're just trying to stay alive long enough to play out all of our burn and win. If we end up a little bit later in the game holding this guy up as a blocker after he already did a little bit of damage and now he's got Death Touch turned on, it can keep us alive long enough to get all that damage potential out of our hand and just win. But also, if we draw a second copy of the Gastal Thrillseeker, now it just comes down with haste and Death Touch and draining for another 1, and that's nuts. And if we're up against other aggro decks, gaining that 1 life seems negligible, but it absolutely matters, especially when you take into account the other ways this deck has to gain life and to blow out a lot of the other aggro decks. So when I actually tried the Gastal Thrillseeker in practice, it turned out to be really, really good, even though on paper it seemed like it wasn't quite up to snuff to make the cut. Card's just nuts. Moving on to the white cards in the deck, we've obviously got 4 copies of Lightning Helix. This is another way to just burn down our opponent. We can also blow out our opponent's aggro decks by killing their creature in response to their buffs, which is really, really important. But most importantly, it also gains us life. So if we're up in one of those aggro deck mirror matches, we're gaining enough life to buff up our life total and survive so that we can play out the rest of the cards in our hand. Because if we can just play out all of the cards in my hand, we just win, right? If we just play out everything, we just win because we have so much damage potential. Every single card deals so much damage, and almost every single card deals at least some damage regardless of whether they deal with it or not. And we just have an inevitability that if we could just play everything, we can just win. We just need to survive long enough to do that sometimes if we're up against other aggro decks. Lightning Helix alongside the Gastal Thrillseeker really help make that happen. The last card is, of course, Boros Charm, kind of the core of what makes this deck so damn good. An instant that for only 2 mana can just do 4 damage straight to the opponent, which is nuts. But it also has a little bit of versatility, right? We can give our permanents indestructible until end of turn if we're in a position where we can swing through for more than 4 damage with our creatures and we just need to make sure they're protected. We can also give a creature double strike. And that's not always going to matter, but sometimes it does. If we can maybe give our Screaming Nemesis double strike in the right situation where we're able to take damage, shoot that back at the opponent, but still do even more damage, there just can be some absolutely wild lines you can potentially do. It's not going to come up very often. Most of the time, this is just a 4 damage spell, but that's all it needs to be because it's nuts. And that's the deck. Honestly, kind of insane. The mana base is very specific. We only have 17 lands. Everything makes red. We're running 4 Blackcleave Cliffs and 4 Inspiring Vantages because we don't really need 4 mana ever. If we top out at 3, that's fine, so having the fast lands just makes sense. We're also running 2 copies of each pain land. And then the last 4 cards, we're running 2 copies each of the luck lands, where you need a player to have 13 or less life in order for them to come into play tapped. And honestly, in a deck like this, they're basically like slow lands. They're almost always coming in untapped as your 3rd land drop, because you're never, ever, ever going to be in a position where your opponent has more than 13 life after turn 3. Or after turn 2.5, I guess. Even if you have to, untap on your turn 3 and use your first 2 mana to deal damage before playing, the luck land, it's still almost always gonna happen that you can play this luck land untapped and still use it the turn it comes down. We don't want to go too ham on them, but 2 copies of each in addition to the 2 pain lands I think makes a lot of sense. And then the last land is just 1 lonely Thran Portal so that we can have whichever of the 3 colors we need if we are in a pinch, and it just helps get our consistency of mana colors up just high enough to make this super consistent, and it works super well. 17 lands is plenty enough when you take into account the fact that we have 4 grab the prizes. And the damage output of this is nuts. I promise you, if you can just get to a point where you've played out everything in your hand, the opponent's just dead. And it's insane. I'm using it to rank up right now. I suggest you give it a try. Let's check out the games. We're going to keep this. This looks great. This looks great. We'll obviously play the Inspiring Vantage because we know we need the white. And we'll do our best to try to hide the black if we get the opportunity. Which we probably won't. That's okay though. Is it better to get the Pyromancer out earlier and miss 1 trigger on the Hired Claw? Maybe. I actually think it's just better to get the Thrillseeker out so that we can start our engines sooner. Get that death touch kicking in, which can matter if this guy gets super huge. Next turn we definitely want to drop the Hired Claw though. Hired Claw Boltwave. In a perfect world, we'll draw a land and we'll play Pyromancer Hired Claw. You got more removal, sir? I doubt it. Maybe bounce. We just replay it and ping. Do what you gotta do, buddy. Blocks. Sure. What you got? Nothing? Just a block. Alright, well, we'll play the Pyromancer. My poor pupper's so tired, he's snoring. So we make sure we tick up that speed in case we draw another one. Alright, Hired Claw comes down. 100%. Kills the Pyromancer? No, he's going to return it. It's actually really good for us. Crazy, man. We'll just Boltwave. Go to 4. Pass the turn. Sure. Return our lizards that do more damage when we play them. Just give me free burn spells. That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful, Sizzle. Absolutely wonderful. We probably want to kill the Steam Core Scholar, right? Yeah, that seems fine. He's down to 11. We've got how much damage potential in our hand? 3, 5, 7. At least 8, plus the Nemesis. Steam Core Scholar comes back. Oh, he's got a Helping Hand deck. A Jeskai version, huh? This must be a Monument deck that dumps Oculuses when it discards, so that it can recommission them back into play. You could also dump the Monument and recommission it back into play too, which is pretty cool. I like that. We should build that. I think I would make an Esper version though, because I think Liliana would just be really, really good in a deck like that. We got a 5/5 Oculus. Sure. Gets to do the thing. We get to play a land. We're just going for it, bro. If the Oculus eats our Hired Claw, we either get through for 3 with the Nemesis, or we kill his dude and do 2 to something. Okay, he takes it. He goes to 6. We literally have lethal in our hand next turn. Ouch. Ouch, bro. Ouch. Swing with the Nemesis. We have way more than we need. Way more than we need. Really? Okay. Hiya! 𝑇𝑒𝑚𝑒, you're done for. I don't know why he blocked with the Oculus. 3 Hired Claws and 3 Burst Lightnings. Yes, we will keep this. Call me insane. But every time we attack, we get 3 triggers? Yes, please. Even if we have 1 land, I don't even care. I'm also really excited that Tezzeret's in Edge of Eternities. That's my most anticipated not Universes Beyond set. 100%. Is it the Avatar set like we thought, Finn? Is that going to be the last Universe Beyond set this year? I'm not excited about that. I understand why Avatar is great, but it's not really my cup of tea. 4 Burst Lightnings. Well. I guess we'll hit for 6. And then kill his other creature before he can buff it up. And he'll get to do 2 to us. That's fine. So another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have lethal next turn if he doesn't have a blocker. Or removal for a Hired Claw. Yeah, the lack of diversity in what we drew is kind of silly. Kind of silly. Well, he's got at least 1 blocker. Lightning Helix, huh? Let's see what our opponent does. I want him to try to cast an instant to blow us out. Only blocking with the Swift Spear. So he's clearly going to play something and buff it up, right? Burst Lightning. This guy. So we could either make it bigger so that it survives the Burst Lightning and kills the Hired Claw. Or we can let it die and just kill his Swift Spear. I think I like this better. Either way, we lose one of our dudes. Or I guess, yeah, we lose both of our dudes. Maybe I should have just killed the Swift Spear. He would have had a creature left regardless, but we would have had 2 Hired Claws. He's pretty out of gas, which is really nice for us. He's scared. He's running scared, boys. Swings for 8. Swings for 8. Think we got him. Good Knight. How's that for a gut shot? Mono red. Just eating mono red's lunch thing. We're keeping this. We don't have a 1-drop creature, but it's fine. We'll play the Cliffs. We'll hold up the Burst Lightning. Actually, you know what? We'll just kill the Elf. It does put our damage potential down by 2, but his deck's probably built around trying to ramp out with the Elf. So if we can slow him down, it probably buys us an entire, like one more entire turn to get to our win, which could be super important. So we're gonna start with the Thrillseeker so that we can start our engines as quick as possible. Turn on that Death Touch in case it becomes relevant a little bit later on. We shall see. Alright, we want to see if we can turn on the Gorge, right? We probably can't. Now, we would have needed a Boros Charm. So we'll play the Pyromancer just to get another creature on board. Play out the Gorge, pass. We're just going to dump Screaming Nemesises until they're all out there, and then we'll use our burn afterwards, and we'll probably get the win. Keen-Eyed Curator, sure. It's a good card, but I don't know if it's good enough. Gonna turn on that Death Touch for the Thrillseeker, which is nice. Oh, no. He's gonna trade and take 3, and we turn on the Death Touch. Let's go. That's how you do it, boys. And girls. And girls. I didn't forget about you, Pumpkin. But that is how you do it. We got a Cankerbloom. We got a Cankerbloom! Let's wait to do the Hopeless Nightmare. I don't want him to factor in the extra 2 damage coming to his decision to block or not. But we have another 7 damage in our hand, so if we can hit for 5 here, which we should, that'll be really good. He's thinking hard. I mean, that makes sense. You want the Maverick in the yard anyway. I just don't know what you do with the Cankerbloom. Alright. Well, that's rough for you. Means we have lethal in hand as long as we top deck a non-land. And even if we do top deck a land, if we can get through with the Thrillseeker, we still have lethal. And even if we do top deck a land, if we draw a land and a 1-drop off Grab the Prize, we still have lethal. So, no matter what, we got lethal. We'll swing anyway. Alright, he's gonna trade. We only have 1 white source. So we gotta do it this way. Good night. Good night. Alright, this looks great. We're gonna keep it. Good old hired claw. We'll start with a, I don't want to show him our white yet. We'll start with the Blackcleave Cliffs and play hired claw. Alright. Inspired Vantage. I guess we go, Scamp. I kind of want to save the Hopeless Nightmare to hit a better target. So I kind of like the idea of just playing the Boltwave first. The longer we wait to play the Nightmare, the more important of a target that we hit. But also the longer that we wait, the more chances we don't get rid of something that he thinks is negligible, and then after drawing a few more cards realizes he needs it. And that's interesting as well. But we'll swing in. Get lost. Sure. I think we're going to Lightning Helix. I'd like to hold on to the Burst Lightning if I can. If there's no reason not to. And if we play the Hopeless Nightmare, then we're definitely playing the Burst Lightning. Alright, Blackcleave Cliffs. Do we take a chance on the Nemesis? I don't think we can because he has untapped lands. I don't think we can. I think we do this. I mean, he's probably just going to bounce the Scamp, right? Alright, he lets it through. Interesting. Play the Hopeless Nightmare. Make him discard. Goes down to 7. And once again, we'll save the map token for next turn. But we will Burst Lightning him. Having that mana advantage is more important than getting the extra potential 2 damage out of it. Nemesis. He had no instance. So we'll just swing 4. And we've literally got death in our hand and death in play. Good game. Boltwave for the win. This looks great. We're going to keep it. We don't have any black cards requiring black mana, so we're going to keep the Cliffs secret for now. Not that it really matters. Swing for 1 with the Scamp. I think we want to get our creatures out first. So we'll play the Cliffs. Swing. We'll Pyromancer. Put him at 14. Next turn, we're going to want to be mana efficient and use the Screaming Nemesis. See what he's got. Inspiration from Beyond, Skybox Ferry. What is this deck? What is this deck? Day of Judgment. That's fine. We're not relying on creatures, which is kind of funny because it looks like we are. We've had almost nothing but creatures this whole time, and the majority of the deck is burn spells. But we'll get what we can out of the creatures for now while we can. Hit for 2. Scamp. Puts him at 6. We have 6 here if we draw a non-creature. Well, there it is. And we only have 1 white source, so we have to do it this way. And Boros Charm for the win. Good night. Get those sweepers out of here. I'm going to keep this. We're up against Lone Wolf during Community Night. Let's go. We're going to start with Inspiring Vantage and drop the Sawblade Scamp. Get in for 1 right now. Alright, we got the Blackcleave Cliffs. We'll go Gastal Thrillseeker. Ping for 1. Get our speed up to 2. Smash in with the Scamp. Pro Tour is happening live right now, and it's looking like Matt Nass is about to win, which is interesting. I mean, I guess we just jam this, and we smash. 13. 𝑀𝑎𝑟𝑑𝑢, who'da thunk it? 𝑀𝑎𝑟𝑑𝑢 burn, guys. Witness protection. It's kind of rude. Do 2. Smack with the Pyromancer. This is like sort of lizard tribal, but not. Just coincidentally has a lot of lizards. We did play around their synergies a bit when fine-tuning it, for sure. Another witness protection, oh god. Oh god.
Let's rock!
Here we go, here we go. Oh, it's tapped. Eh? Oh my god, we get in for 2. Grab the prize, the burst lightning. Hit for another 2. Boltwave. Could have just scamped. I am so sorry, Lone Wolf, but I had to do it. I had to. I don't think we can keep this hand. It's a little slow and a little too one-dimensional. We'll toss it away. And I guess we'll keep this one. Yeah, I'm going to be in South Carolina in March. And my good friend, the magic historian, Hatcher himself, is going to be there as well. Although I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about that. Let's swing.
Oh, you're scamping. Okay.
Okay, okay. I could. Let me think.
Take your time.
I think we're gonna do. I think we're gonna do this. I don't love it.
Why do you hate otters so much?
It's okay.
Okay.
Ah, boy. Well, gotta just pull the trigger now.
Another one. Huh?
Another Sawblade Scamp.
Oh, go ahead.
Scampy. End the turn.
Oh, damn these draws, man.
Got a counter spell?
Yep.
Spell Pierce. You do have a counter spell. Wonderful. Of course, by wonderful, I mean, to hell with you!
One card left, huh? Okay.
Just
Let's
one.
do this back now.
Just one little card.
Uh-huh.
Just one little boy.
Get this down. Good cooking.
Fine. I just have to order.
We will pass the turn.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, let's make more orders.
Ral Crackling Wit, making more otters. That oughter be good.
Can take this, I think.
Put you at 6. That's right. You use that removal spell. You're still going to 6. You're still going to 6.
Got nothing, huh? Oh, okay, let's pop off here.
You'll see. You'll see.
Oh yeah. Coming together.
How fast
Nope.
can you kill me? That's the question.
That is the question.
It's Burst Lightning!
Work with what's available.
Go Burst Lightning.
It's time to embrace the local culture.
Woo! It's a lot.
There's nothing more beautiful than a sky full of deadly lightning.
I don't know if it's enough, but it's a lot. Might be enough.
Might be.
Drawing a lot of cards. Got 1 mana left.
I don't think it's enough.
How dare
Unless you
you
get something
storm
in
off
your
your
hand.
burst lightnings. You bastard!
Storm count +1.
It's okay. I'll take it. It's fine. Everything's fine. We're all fine here. How are you?
You know, I'm doing quite well right now.
You deserved it. You deserved it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.